confusing. It's Global History Night.
Yes, it is.
Hey, everybody.
What's going on, y'all?
Yes, here we are. Global History Night. The world. The world is happening, huh?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. How's everybody doing? How are you doing?
I am groovy.
Busy? Okay.
Yes, always.
Always. Seriously, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's one hardworking DJ right here. Okay, so we were having a little conversation about what the hell is going on over in Iran.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what happened was a drone was shot down, and Iran is claiming that it was in Iran's airspace, and so apparently, so Trump is saber rattling, as they would say, and the Secretary of State actually the UN ambassador is more of a hawk than the Secretary of State. So it seems like surprisingly enough, I don't even know, man. Trump is actually sounding a little bit more mellow about this than he does about other things than you might expect.
Right.
Okay, this is Trump. We're talking by Trump standards. You could say that.
Right.
So, actually, I don't know, ma'am. Let's please not go to war with Iran, okay? Just, yeah. The U.S. is going to deploy 1,000 more troops to Poland. And President Trump had a press conference with the Polish president, and he said that the force would be taken from America's 52,000 strong contingent in Germany and include drones and other military hardware. So, and this comes after offers from Warsaw to spend $2 billion on I don't know, man. I guess that it comes after what, the government of Poland is offering to pay for it, I guess. Supposedly. It comes after offers from Warsaw to spend $2 billion on building a base. So they're going to build a military base. But, okay, so President Duda, the Polish president, said that it might be called Fort Trump. So, okay, so we're wondering why the president wants to send 1,000 troops to Poland? We have the answer right there. Gonna name a fucking base after him. Yeah. Man, okay, the rest of the world just completely knows how to play Trump. The Prime Minister of Israel, okay, there's the settlements in Israel, which are a real bone of contention, and the president of Israel, the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, has named settlements after Trump. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so like Trump, I mean, the Israelis aren't supposed to be building more settlements. It's illegal. According to its territory that is they're not supposed to be doing it. According to.
So why are they doing it?
Because they can.
Even though it's illegal.
Mm-hmm. Because they can. Because nobody's doing anything about it. I mean, because they don't give a shit what the rest of the world thinks. Basically.
Good job, Trump. Trump is starting all this.
He sure is.
Since he don't care, everybody else is going to be, hey, we can do what we want to.
Well, yeah, and his Jared Kushner, his puppy dog, is an Orthodox Jew, and they like the settlements. Jared Kushner's family has contributed money to settlements. Bibi Netanyahu, but that's his nickname, Benjamin. That's the Prime Minister's nickname. This isn't like Burn Dog. He's always been. I didn't make that up. He's always been called Bibi. he's known Jared Kushner's family his whole life because Jared Kushner's families are filthy rich Orthodox Jews that like to, you know, give them. I was watching an interview with Jared Kushner, and he said, and the interviewer said to him, well, how do you think, you know, I mean, being as you're an Orthodox Jew who's given money to settlements, what makes you, how are the Palestinians going to trust you? And he said, well, my job isn't to be trusted. It's like, what? You're supposed to be negotiating peace. What the, I mean, pathetic. Just pathetic.
You know, that's what happens when you have a leader. I knew, you know, when Trump came in office, and like I said, it's just a trickle effect. You get one guy that does it,
yeah.
Then everybody's like, well, hey, he does it. We could do it. We all could do it. Then this is what starts stuff like that.
Well, yeah, you know, and the world is more and more right wing, and that's the, you know, I mean, that certainly happened in most of the European elections, and we have hardliners all over the world. There's a lot going on with migration and immigration right now, and the government of Italy has introduced a new security decree that would mean non-governmental organizations, rescue boats that bring migrants to Italy without permission could face fines of up to 50,000 euros.
Ooh.
Yeah, so what are the, I mean, it's like, talk about international law. I mean, international law means if somebody is drowning, you're supposed to help them.
Right.
So what the fuck do they think, do they want people to do? On Friday night, the Italian president, Sergio Mattarella, signed a bill on security and immigration. The far-right interior minister, and the bill is described by aid groups as a declaration of war against the NGOs who are saving lives at sea. And an Italian, related to this, an Italian teacher has been suspended over a video made by her students that compared a security law drafted by Italy's far-right interior minister to Mussolini's racial law. So the teacher's been suspended because her students made this video. So there's been protests all over the country in support of her. It's like, that's your students' fucking opinions, okay? You know, I mean, people should be pleased that the kids know who Mussolini is. So, oh man. So there is actually, okay, see, I feel like kind of the whole week of news has been it's a whole lot of people arguing about definitions. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that the migrant detention camps on the border are concentration camps.
Right.
So there's people screaming like, oh my God, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to say, blah, 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 blah. And so I was watching Angela Rye, a commenter. She's kind of like Rachel Maddow. She's becoming like Rachel Maddow to me. I really like Angela Rye. I mean, I think she's really smart, but she gets now, I mean, I just think she loses her cool on the news, man. She's like, she does she's really smart, but you know, to me, she's just like getting totally too loud and hysterical, and she interrupts people, and she raises her voice, and I'm like, come on, Angela. I mean, yeah, it's disappointing to me. Like, okay, you need to let these people finish their sentence and don't yell. I mean, it's not the right place to be yelling. So she read the dictionary, the encyclopedia definition of concentration camps, and you know, according to this definition, these detention centers do fit the definition of concentration camps. And you know, I mean, obviously it's different. See, what they had in Germany was they had the work camps and the death camps. So, I mean, the work camps was where they sent people, and then the death camps, you know, like, I don't know, they do like work and stuff, but the death camps were where they did like really sent people to be killed. So, you know, I mean, one of the things that makes it, I mean, to me, the most striking thing about it being a concentration camp is that people are like stuck there indefinitely, and you know, they're not, it's like Guantanamo, they're not being charged with anything necessarily, you know, and so they're just in this. But you know, I mean, the point is that it's a big problem, and that arguing about, and that it's not right, and that children are still separated from their parents, and you know, by arguing about what it's called, you're completely like missing the point. And you know, everybody plays into that. So I don't know. Trump is like, now he's claiming that he's going to send ICE agents that he's going to start like rounding people up, basically. Yeah. But what drives me crazy is that you know, again, and I've said this before, I mean, the Democrats need to come up with legal solutions, okay? You just like, no, what he's saying he wants to do isn't okay, and it's inhumane, but you know, Democrats need to offer an alternative. You know, I'll say, like, you know, I mean, I don't give a shit. You know, I mean, like,
it seems like to me though, when it seems like he doesn't go for all. He wants what he wants.
Yeah.
There doesn't, to me, to be honest with you, there ever seems like there's never really an alternative with him.
Well, it's hard. Well, it's nobody offers one. They just get hysterical.
I remember when they went back and forth with him about the wall.
Yeah.
Forever. I mean, they're coming up with alternatives. He's just not taking what they give him. And I forgot what they were, but he did give them some alternatives for the wall.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
You know, and so
they should have fucking taken it. Yeah.
You know, and
yeah, they should have fucking taken it. He was gonna, like, they should have, you know, and like, yeah, we said it. I kept saying it at the time. You know, bargain some of the wall for DACA. Okay. You know, yeah, he did come up with some alternatives, and like, yeah, they should have fucking taken them. You know, it's fucking stupid. Like, yeah, they need to try and figure something out, and try and you know, try and get some Republicans on their side. Try and appeal to people's humanity. You know, nobody wants kids to be separated from their parents. You know,
right?
I mean, you know, most people aren't. You know, I mean, Trump's psychopath. You know, I mean, he doesn't care, but most people do. So, and so then, speaking of the border, now, did we talk about this? Okay, now African immigrants are coming through the Mexican border as well. So in San Antonio, Texas, the immigration authorities are searching for people who can speak, French most of all, and because a lot of people from Central Africa speak French, and Lingala, which is the language in Democratic Republic of Congo, and so they're trying to get people that can speak French and Portuguese and Lingala. And okay, this was something I saw on conservative news. A bunch of people got shipped up. Migrants got shipped up to Maine, and then Maine is having a really hard time settling them and housing them and trying to serve them and help them. So, I mean, it's just, again, it's real easy to criticize the border states when you don't need to try and deal with the border.
Right.
And so yes, people should be fair and just and humane, but the northern states shouldn't be so fucking high and mighty.
Right.
Basically, that is what I think. And okay, so the other thing that is kind of connected to Iran, going back to Iran, is there is Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State. Okay, this is classic. This is just classic.
You're just in front of the speaker.
Oh, okay. There is supposed to be sanctions against countries that use child soldiers, and Saudi Arabia does, because as we remember, Saudi Arabia this is just so crazy. Okay, because Saudi Arabia is fighting a war in Yemen, and they are using child soldiers from Sudan, mostly from Sudan and Eritrea, two of the countries that people really want to get away from. And I mean, child soldiers are, people send their kids there, and kids go on their own. They can make money.
Right.
And child soldiers are just, for the same reasons that teenagers get in trouble and do stupid stuff here. I mean, they're not aware of consequences. They're not like cautious about things. And so yeah, teenagers, teenagers that have no okay, man, Vallejo's bad about like opportunities for youth, but it's not Sudan. It's not Sudan or Eritrea, and so there's nothing for youth to do there. So they're like, okay, let's just go over to these other countries and kill some people and make some money, and their little like frontal lobe moral centers aren't developed yet. So everybody knows that they use child soldiers in Saudi Arabia, but since Saudi Arabia is such a great friend of the United States, the U.S. Secretary of State is not including Saudi Arabia on the list of countries that recruit child soldiers. In other words, and that also brings us back to Eritrea, which is one of the places that people are refugees from. And we've been talking about that for a while, because first there was the truce between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and then we had a whole thing about Nipsey Hussle and Eritrea. So in Eritrea, they're having a social media campaign to try and force change, and it's modeled in part of, remember the ice bucket challenge? Mm-hmm. So,
that was a fad for a while. It
was. People like dumped buckets of ice water over themselves for ALS, for...
they would just do it for anything. To be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just a phase that people just started doing it and putting themselves on social media.
Okay, interesting. So and I've been wondering about this. Eritreans had hoped that following last July's peace deal with Ethiopia, that the government would open up political space, as there was no longer the fear of the country being destabilized by its neighbors. And so that's really what we were all hoping for. But there has been no change. There is still mandatory conscription into the military, mandatory indefinite conscription, and he has Isaias Afwerki, the president of Eritrea, has exploited improved relationships with Ethiopia to his advantage. He has gotten Ethiopia to restrict the activities of exiled opposition groups. An Eritrean opposition group was forced to shut down its office in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, as Eritrea's embassy reopened there. So, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think it goes back to how rare it is to have anybody really be on the good side of anything, because here's Abiy Ahmed, who's doing a lot of good stuff in a lot of respects, but he's trying to keep the peace and suck up to Isaias Afwerki by not allowing the Eritrean opposition to do anything in his country. So that's not okay. I mean, that's not fair. And so once again, like I keep saying, I am convinced a lot of these people are listening to Nipsey Hussle. I'm just convinced of that. And so, I don't know, man. Okay, so Eritrea, we know that this all still, we know that, whatever, maybe this peace made more difference to the, well, no, I mean, a lot of people have been able to be reunited, but we were talking about the problems with trying to draw the border and all of that. So, I don't know. So speaking of, so we have more news from Ethiopia. Okay, do I have this here? Because there's a bunch of refugees from Ethiopia were returned from Yemen. And I'm just like, okay, I did not understand that, okay, because Yemen is having genocide and famine. Like, why do you want to go be a refugee there? Of all places, okay? Maybe they were on the ways. Like, okay, where were you going, people? But, okay, so Ethiopians returned from Yemen, and they left because of fighting and poor economy. Like, okay, I know fighting and more... Okay, I know things are bad, but look at the fucking pictures from Yemen, man. It's like it's famine over there. It's famine and genocide, and yeah, so I'd be pretty happy to get back to Ethiopia if I were them. And so migrants, so that was about 300 people, and they were rescued by Libya's Coast Guard off of the capital. And we happen to know that the Libyan Coast Guard tends to rescue people by bringing them back to detention camps. I don't know, man, detention camps, concentration camps, whatever. It's like nasty-ass places where you get stuck and, yeah, places you do not want to be. So, at all. So, real major human rights violations. So, okay, 200, okay, migrants, I mean, I'm wishing, come on, man, let's try and work stuff out in Ethiopia, okay? So, in southern Ethiopia, there's a giant dam and irrigated sugar plantations that's threatening to wipe out tens of thousands of indigenous people. So...
Well, how's that?
Well, I guess if it's going to flood.
Oh, because it sounded like you said that the plants were about to wipe out the people.
Plantations.
The plantations are going to wipe out the people because of the flood.
Yeah, a giant dam and I guess because they're trying to irrigate sugar plantations.
Gosh, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a massive dam being built in Ethiopia that was opened up a while ago, but I think this is something different because everybody was pretty happy about that dam. I didn't hear, nobody was talking about wiping out tens of thousands of indigenous people. but a think tank called the Oakland Institute, and I was trying to figure out where the Oakland Institute was located. I'm not sure if it's located in Oakland or not.
Or unless they're talking about the other Oakland.
Which one?
There's another Oakland somewhere.
There is? No.
I'm serious.
I'm sure most of them. Yeah.
I've heard it before.
Yeah.
There's another Richmond. There's another Oakland. And I just can't think of where. Well, you can pull it up.
Yeah.
Unless they meant the Bay Area Oakland.
That's what I could. I mean, I looked up the organization online to try and see if it was Oakland, if it was our Oakland, our beautiful Oakland. But okay, so Roselle is checking to see where this institute is located. But the Oakland Institute says that the Ethiopian.
Well, this one says Oakland in Broadway. It's on 1699 and 1533 Broadway.
It should say Oakland, California. I mean, especially if this is like, okay, if you're, especially if you're an international agency.
Right.
I mean,
why won't they?
Yeah, kind of pathetic. The Oakland Institute has said that, the Ethiopian government has made considerable, of course, blame me because I went ahead and copied their information. Says that, the Ethiopian government has made considerable progress on human rights under Prime Minister. It has yet to address the impact of state development plans on indigenous populations in the lower Oromo Valley, where people face loss of livelihood, starvation, and violent conflict.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's just the problem. I mean, that's just the problem you have in a lot of places with trying to develop, trying to make better jobs. I don't know. I mean, you're trying to, make as a development, better jobs, whatever. I mean, things change, and so you need to try and bring people along with it. But, I mean, the problem when you have things like gigantic dams and sugar plantations is, I mean, big projects like that tend to be run by Western organizations, and so if Ethiopia was building all that stuff, it would be one thing. But the problem is who's making money off of all this.
Right.
So did you see anything else about the Oakland Institute?
No, but there's a lot of cities that have Oakland. There's a lot of states that have Oakland. There's Oakland City, Indiana, Oakland, Massachusetts, Oakland, Mississippi.
So it could be any of these places.
Oklahoma, and Oakland, Oregon. But when I pulled up the Oakland Institute, it gave me the one on Broadway. It gave me Broadway, Oakland, California.
Did it say that it was an institute about international? Did it say what it was about?
Let me look it back up.
Because that's the thing. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah. Oakland Institute as a leading policy think tank. We bring bold actions to the most pressing social, economic. Let's see.
Well,
yeah, it's showing Africa.
Okay, so that's the Oakland Institute. So
So something about showing a lot of news. Bukanga Alonzo.
Huh? Oh, is that one of the people
Promises of agro-industrial parks.
Huh.
And this is on Oakland Institute.
Okay.
.org.
Well, there we go. You can stop by and visit it sometime. Because in that part of that world that we've been following the revolution in Sudan, and Eritreans had been really hoping that ousting Omar al-Bashir in Sudan would be helpful to them to try and get rid of Isaias Afwerki. And so what's been happening in Sudan is yeah, okay, Omar al-Bashir appears in public and is going to be put on trial. And this was really interesting. I was listening to an interview with somebody on the phone who was like basically a street protester, and they asked her what she thought about that, and she said, well, that's no good because he's going to be tried by the military court, not civilian. So I was like, damn, man. It's like she really sounded pretty badass to me. I mean, like, because they were saying like, oh, well, you know, don't you think it's good that he's going to be put on trial? And she's like, no, it's not what we want. It's like, man, okay, so they are still out there, and you know, I mean, supposedly, you know, so there was some violence from the military against the protesters, but in the past couple days anyway, there has not been too much going on there that I know of, and so I will be letting everybody know about that next time. Okay, so meanwhile, last time, see, this is kind of cool because we just had a show a week ago because our schedule is, you know, flipping out. I know. So yeah, okay, we are just slight diversion here. We are now the first and third Tuesdays.
Yes.
First and third Tuesdays.
Yes.
Yes.
We figured it out.
We did.
Opened up Pandora's box.
Yep. But this is going to be good. This is going to be really good. It's going to be a good summer. We'll have to have a party. We will have been doing the show for 2 years.
We will. We definitely will.
That will be very cool. So, but anyway, the point of this is that, you know, I mean, it's always kind of fun to do a show. I mean, it's fun either way to do a show when I've just done one because I can just kind of pick up where I left off. Because for the last show, we were talking about the body, you know, since I love these sort of topics, about Felix Tshisekendi's body being brought home and buried. And so the Democratic Republic of Congo, the president is Felix Tshisekedi. It was his dad that was Tshisekedi Sr. that was brought home and buried. So has formally applied for admission to the 6-member East African community. And so that is a regional bloc, and it's made up of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. All countries with very serious human rights concerns. Some more serious than others, but you know, so there is a flare-up of ethnic violence in DR Congo, and I mean, hopefully hopefully joining up with other countries is a good thing, but I don't know. And then as we said last week, there's now Ebola has been transmitted from DR Congo over to Uganda. So, and then over in Kenya. Kenya is having real problems with homophobia, and the government has ordered 76 gay refugees to return to a camp they had fled after some of them had faced homophobic attacks. And so homosexuality is illegal in Kenya. And I had a chance to see that. Last week was Gay Pride here in Solano County, and there was a film festival. One of the films they showed was a gay film that was made in Kenya that was banned in Kenya. And so it was about two girls, two young women that meet and start dating each other. And part of the story is that their fathers are both politicians running against each other. And I didn't think, and so the father of one of them was kind of mad about that, was saying, like, it'll look bad if you guys are friends. It kind of was so anyway, I mean, it was a very sweet love story, but then it showed they were beat up, and it was really scary, really sad. And so they were beat up by a bunch of people, and were taken to the police station, and the parents of one of the girls came in to pick her up and smacked her. So it was very emotionally intense. And then the parents of the other girl came to pick her up, and her mother thought she was really evil, but her father, her father was saying, you're mad at our daughter, like, okay, you're like saying our daughter is doing something wrong, whereas she was just practically killed. So then it kind of like jumped ahead a couple years, and so one of the girls was sent away to England, and the other one went on to medical school.
Too close to the speaker.
So it fast forwarded to a couple years, and so the girl that went to England came back, possibly. It kind of wasn't sure. So I was reading an interview with the filmmaker, and she said the reason it was banned wasn't so much that it had gay content, it's that it was too positive, and it's that the girls, like the girls weren't sorry for what they did, and the parents didn't, they weren't punished enough for what they did. So I was like, damn. So the movie is called Rafiki, and it's really good, and people were really people thought it was really, really emotionally intense, and it was, but I thought it was going to be worse. I thought they were going to get raped or else killed, basically. So it wasn't as violent as I thought it might be. So yeah, it was really good, and it was a very cool gay film festival here in Vallejo. They really wanted to get some international films, and so then there was another one. Unfortunately, a lot of the time when you get international gay films, they're really depressing. There was another film which was about a transgender Filipino woman who was killed by a U.S. soldier. And so, you make the issue really complicated because, like, it's, like her being transgender is complicated. And they kind of use, like, the gay panic for the trans, they said that he was really upset because he didn't know she was biologically a man, and then he found out, and, But, it also, when you have issues like that in a country, it will always relate to the fact that the Philippines was colonized by the United States. And so then when you have, like, soldiers raping Filipinos and raping and killing Filipinos and getting away with it, it's not just the individuals. It's a big issue. So, unfortunately, that film was way too long. It was going on and on and on. It was so repetitive. And so I followed this issue in the news at the time, and I kind of remember it, but I actually don't even really remember what happened. I think he was acquitted. The soldier was acquitted, I think. But seriously, this film was endless, and I kind of went out and was like chatting with people because I was really interested in speaking with another filmmaker, my new friend Stephen Rains, and he has an art project. And so a rubbing, it's when you like take a piece of paper and like take charcoal or something and like rub over it and make art. And
you're talking about like how you can get like I don't know, you could find something, a picture of something, if it's rough, and you go over with the chalk, and you can kind of get this picture out of it,
Yes, exactly. And so this guy has an art project called The Gay Rub. And like, yes, it's supposed to have it does not have that title by accident. It's supposed to be kind of, and so he goes around and makes these rubbings at the graves of different gay people and turns it into art pieces. And so I just, I love stuff like that. And so I just thought it was awesome. And I went out and was chatting with him and, talking with him about different graves where he could possibly go and do that. And I actually was sort of, my father thought that was really strange. And he was going like, well, what about the people's relatives? And I was going like, well, he's not like desecrating. He doesn't hurt the graves or anything. It's just, so that is what I was doing. And so that was a very cool film. It was really beautiful, just beautifully shot. And so I actually was talking with people about bringing the actual art exhibit here to Vallejo. And there was another really cool film about African American female soldiers in World War II, and it was about two of them that had a relationship, but it was sort of like a fantasy sort of thing. There was an old lady remembering her relationship. And so I just thought it was really, really beautiful and moving, and it was made by a young woman, a young filmmaker, and it was really cool. So it was really, she wanted to show something positive, I guess, because a lot of gay films are really depressing. And so, yeah, I really like this young lady. I really look forward to seeing what she is going to be coming up with. Okay, and before we take a break, I'm gonna move over and talk about Uganda for a minute while we're talking about violence and rape. Hundreds of men in Uganda have been jailed for sexual offenses against girls and women during a month of special court sessions to clear a backlog of cases. Between November and December last year, 414 men and 9 women were found guilty. So, I mean, looking at cultural attitudes there, it's really good. I mean, things need, rapists need to be punished, and women need to know that if they speak up about what's happened to them, there will be consequences for the people, and they won't be shamed. And so, the women need to know that their country cares about them. So, so I suppose you could call that like good news about bad things. Maybe I think that can be one of the new titles here. Good news about bad things. So yeah. So okay, we're gonna take a little break, and we will be back shortly. And thank you very much, James and Cindy, for listening. And we'll be back.